You'll never amount to anything but disappointment. My older brother Jackson sneered at me just 3 months before I became the youngest cryptocurrency millionaire in Denver history. Last weekend, when I pulled up to our family reunion in my brand new Ferrari F8, the entire backyard fell dead silent, and the look on their faces was absolutely priceless. My name is Cameron Valdez. I'm 22 years old, and I just made my first million from a cryptocurrency trading algorithm I developed in secret. But where I come from, a working-class Mexican-American family in Aurora, Colorado, making money without real work is considered almost sinful. My family has always measured success by how many hours you clock in and how tired you are at the end of the day. My father, Roberto, has been a construction foreman for 25 years, building homes across the Denver metro area with hands that are permanently stained with concrete and calloused from decades of hard labor. My mother, Sophia, works double shifts as a nurse at Presbyterian St. Joseph Hospital, often coming home so exhausted she'd fall asleep in her scrubs. Jackson, my older brother by 4 years, followed perfectly in Dad's footsteps. At 26, he's already a crew supervisor, married with 2 kids, and everything my parents hoped their sons would become. He drives a lifted Chevy Silverado, owns a modest house in Thornton, and represents everything our family considers successful and respectable. Then there's me, the family disappointment who chose computer science over construction, who spends his time playing with computers instead of building something you can actually touch. From the moment I told them I wanted to study programming at the University of Colorado, Denver, the judgment was swift and merciless. "Computers don't build houses, mijo," my father would say, shaking his head. "They don't feed families. You need to learn a real trade, something that matters." Jackson was even harsher. "While I'm out here making real money in the real world, Cameron is in his room pretending he's going to get rich clicking buttons," he'd tell anyone who'd listen. "Someone needs to wake this kid up before he wastes his whole life on fantasies." During family gatherings, I'd watch my relatives praise Jackson's latest promotion or my dad's newest project, while I sat invisible at the corner of the table. When my aunt asked about my studies, Jackson would interrupt with, "Cameron's still playing video games and calling it education." The laughter that followed always felt like knives. But the worst part wasn't their doubt. It was how they dismissed every small success I'd achieved. When I got a scholarship to UCD, they barely acknowledged it. When I landed an internship at a local tech startup, Jackson rolled his eyes and said, "Playing computer games isn't a real job." When I tried to explain blockchain technology or cryptocurrency during family dinners, they'd literally change the subject to Jackson's latest construction project or Dad's newest work contract. My own family had become strangers to me. I was living in 2 completely different worlds. One where technology and innovation were reshaping everything, and another where the only value that mattered was the sweat on your brow and the ache in your muscles at day's end. Little did they know, I was about to prove that sometimes the biggest fortunes are built not with hammers and nails, but with code and courage. The breaking point came during Thanksgiving dinner when I was 20. I'd been working on my cryptocurrency trading algorithm for 8 months, spending every free moment between classes analyzing market patterns, backtesting strategies, and fine-tuning the code. I was excited to share a small breakthrough I'd made. My algorithm had successfully predicted 3 consecutive market movements with 89% accuracy. "Dad, I think I'm onto something big with this crypto project," I said, pulling out my laptop to show the data visualization I'd created. "Look at these prediction patterns. If I can scale this up." Jackson cut me off with a loud laugh. "Here we go again with the magic internet money." He turned to our cousins who were visiting from Phoenix. "Cameron thinks he's going to get rich from his computer because some fake coins went up and down." My father didn't even look at the screen. "Put that thing away, Cameron. We're having dinner, not playing games." "It's not a game, Dad. This is serious financial technology. The crypto market is worth over $2 trillion now, and my algorithm can predict—" "$2 trillion of what?" Jackson interrupted, his voice dripping with condescension. "Air? Numbers on a screen? You know what's worth $2 trillion? The construction industry, the healthcare industry, real industries that build real things." My mother tried to mediate. "Maybe Cameron can explain it to us after dinner, mijo." But Jackson wasn't done. "Mom, don't encourage this. He's been living in fantasy land for 2 years now. When is someone going to tell him the truth?" He turned to face me directly, his eyes cold. "You're embarrassing this family. While I'm out here earning respect, building a career, providing for my kids, you're in your room gambling with play money and calling it business." The table went silent. My younger cousins stared at their plates. My aunt tried to change the subject, but the damage was done. "You want to know what I really think?" Jackson continued, his voice rising. "I think you're scared. Scared of real work, scared of real responsibility, scared of growing up and joining the real world. So you hide behind your computer making up stories about getting rich quick." That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to try to explain myself anymore. I wasn't going to seek their approval or understanding. I was going to disappear into my work and let my results speak for themselves. They wanted proof? I'd give them proof they'd never forget. For the next 18 months, I became a ghost in my own life. I moved out of my parents' house and into a cramped studio apartment near campus, using my savings from the tech internship to cover rent. The place was barely 400 square feet, with a kitchen so small I could touch both walls at the same time. But it was mine. More importantly, it was where I could work without judgment, without interruption, without someone telling me I was wasting my time. My daily routine became monastic in its simplicity. I'd attend my morning classes, grab lunch from the dollar menu at McDonald's, then spend the next 12 to 14 hours coding, testing, and refining my algorithm. I lived on instant ramen, energy drinks, and whatever free food I could find on campus. My social life disappeared completely. While my classmates were out partying or dating, I was hunched over dual monitors, watching market movements and adjusting parameters. The algorithm was incredibly complex, incorporating machine learning models that analyzed not just price movements, but social media sentiment, news patterns, whale wallet movements, and dozens of other variables. I taught myself advanced mathematics, dove deep into quantitative finance, and studied the psychology of market movements until I could predict trader behavior with frightening accuracy. But success didn't come easy. There were weeks where my algorithm would fail spectacularly, losing the small amounts I'd invested for testing. I'd stay up for 72 hours straight trying to figure out what went wrong, surviving on nothing but coffee and determination. My grades started slipping in my other classes. I lost 15 pounds because I'd forget to eat for days at a time. The isolation was the hardest part. I stopped answering calls from friends. I missed family gatherings. When my roommate moved out, I didn't bother finding a replacement. The rent was cheaper split anyway, and I needed every dollar for my trading capital. My phone would buzz with messages from concerned classmates asking if I was okay, but I couldn't explain what I was doing without sounding crazy. My family assumed I was struggling academically and probably doing drugs. Jackson would text me occasionally with job opportunities at his construction company, each message feeling like a knife twist. "Dad's crew needs laborers, $18 per hour to start. Time to grow up, little brother." I never responded. Instead, I printed out each text and taped it to my wall next to my code, using their doubt as fuel to push harder. Every rejection, every dismissive comment, every eye roll became motivation to prove them wrong in the most spectacular way possible. Month after month, my algorithm showed promise, but never quite delivered the breakthrough I needed. I'd have weeks of solid gains followed by crushing losses that wiped out everything I'd made. Each failure taught me something new, but it also drained my savings and my confidence. The worst setback came during my junior year when a major exchange hack caused the entire crypto market to crash overnight. My algorithm, which had been performing beautifully for 3 months, lost 78% of my trading capital in a single day. I sat in my apartment watching my charts turn red, feeling like everything I'd sacrificed had been for nothing. That night, I called my best friend from high school, Tyler, who was studying engineering at Colorado State. I hadn't talked to him in months. "Dude, where have you been?" he asked. "Your mom called my mom asking if I knew how you were doing. She's worried about you." I broke down and told him everything. The algorithm, the family conflict, the isolation, the failures. I expected him to join the chorus of people telling me to give up, Instead, he said something that changed my perspective. Cameron, you've been working on this for 2 years. Most people give up on their dreams after 2 weeks. The fact that you're still fighting means you're onto something real. Tyler became my lifeline. Every week he'd drive down from Fort Collins just to make sure I was eating and hadn't completely lost my mind. He'd bring groceries, listen to my latest theories about market movements, and remind me why I'd started this journey in the first place. But Tyler's support couldn't fix the fundamental problem. I was running out of money. By the end of my junior year, I had less than $800 in my trading account and 2 months of rent left in my savings. I was facing a choice: give up on the algorithm and get a regular job, or risk everything on one final push. I chose to risk everything. I dropped out of college with just 1 semester left, despite my parents' horror and my academic advisor's pleas. I took the money I would have spent on tuition and put it all into my trading account. It was $4,200, every dollar I had left in the world. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life," Jackson told me when he found out. "But don't come crawling back to us when you lose everything. You made your choice." While my family saw my college dropout as the final confirmation of my failure, Tyler saw it differently. "You're not dropping out," he told me. "You're going all in on yourself. There's a difference." He introduced me to Dr. Sarah Chen, an economics professor at CSU who specialized in cryptocurrency markets. When Tyler explained my situation, she agreed to meet with me over coffee in Denver. I was nervous. Here was a real academic, someone with actual credentials about to judge my amateur work. Instead, she was fascinated. After reviewing my algorithm's performance data and code structure, she said something that still gives me chills. "Cameron, this is graduate-level quantitative analysis. You've essentially recreated a hedge fund's trading system in your bedroom." Dr. Chen became an unofficial mentor, helping me refine my mathematical models and pointing out edge cases I'd missed. She never asked for anything in return. She was just excited to see someone so young pushing the boundaries of financial technology. "The traditional finance world is run by people who learned these concepts in textbooks," she told me. "You learned them by living them. That gives you an edge they'll never have." My motivation went deeper than just proving my family wrong, though. Every night, I'd walk through my neighborhood in Aurora and see the economic struggles up close. Families choosing between groceries and gas money. Parents working multiple jobs just to keep their kids in decent schools. People trapped in cycles of financial stress that seemed impossible to break. I realized that if my algorithm could really predict market movements, it wasn't just about getting rich. It was about creating a tool that could help regular people build wealth without needing connections on Wall Street or a finance degree from an Ivy League school. I started documenting everything, not just for myself, but for the day when I could teach others. I imagined creating a platform where working-class families like mine could use sophisticated trading strategies that had previously been available only to the ultra-wealthy. That vision sustained me through the darkest moments. When I'd been awake for 60 hours straight debugging code, when my stomach ached from hunger, when the isolation felt unbearable, I'd remember my parents coming home exhausted every day and think about how different their lives could be if they had access to the same tools that made billionaires richer. Tyler would find me at my computer at 3 a.m. and ask, "What's driving you, man? What makes you keep going when everything seems impossible?" My answer was always the same. I'm not just building an algorithm. I'm building a bridge between 2 worlds, the world I came from and the world I'm trying to reach. As my savings dwindled and I became more isolated, my family's concern transformed into outright intervention attempts. They couldn't understand why I'd thrown away a college degree to chase what they saw as a fantasy, and their worry manifested as increasingly harsh criticism. The confrontations became more frequent and more painful. My mother would show up at my apartment unannounced with bags of groceries, take one look at my living conditions, empty energy drink cans everywhere, code printouts covering every surface, me wearing the same clothes for days, and start crying. "Mijo, you're killing yourself," she'd say. "This isn't healthy, this isn't normal, please come home and finish school." But it was Jackson who really escalated things. He started a campaign to turn the entire extended family against my cryptocurrency gambling addiction. At my cousin Maria's quinceañera, he stood up during the toasts and said, "Let's all pray for Cameron, who's lost his way and needs guidance to find his path back to reality." The humiliation was crushing, but worse was what happened afterward. Family members started staging informal interventions whenever they saw me. My Uncle Fernando cornered me after Mass one Sunday, telling me about a construction job opening that might help me get back on my feet. My Aunt Rosa suggested I see a therapist for what she called my computer addiction. Jackson even went as far as to contact my former professors, asking them to convince me to return to school. When Dr. Martinez from the computer science department called me, I could hear the pity in his voice. "Cameron, your brother is concerned that you've lost perspective. Maybe it's time to consider that this project has run its course." The breaking point came when my father showed up at my apartment with Jackson and two of my uncles. They'd planned what amounted to a financial intervention. "We're here because we love you," my father said, sitting heavily on my only chair. "But this has to stop. You're throwing your life away for nothing." Jackson pulled out a folder. "I've already talked to my supervisor. We can get you hired tomorrow. Good benefits, steady pay, real work with real people. You can move back home, save money, maybe go back to school part-time." "I know this feels like giving up," my Uncle Carlos added. "But sometimes giving up on the wrong thing is how you find the right thing." They genuinely thought they were saving me. In their eyes, I was a young man spiraling into obsession, isolated and delusional, wasting the best years of my life on something that would never work. They couldn't see the progress I was making because they couldn't understand what progress looked like in my world. "Show us the money," Jackson said finally. "If this is real, if this is working, show us your bank account. Show us these profits you keep talking about." I couldn't. At that moment, my trading account was worth $2,400. I'd lost almost half my remaining capital in a bad week. My rent was due in 5 days, and I had $180 in my checking account. The silence stretched until my father spoke. "Mijo, it's time to come home." That night, after they left, I stared at my computer screen and realized I was either about to prove them right or prove them spectacularly wrong. There was no middle ground left. 3 weeks later, everything changed in a single moment that I'll never forget. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday in March, and I was running my latest algorithm iteration on a paper trading account, testing new parameters I'd developed based on Dr. Chen's suggestions about volatility clustering. The crypto markets had been especially turbulent that week due to regulatory uncertainty, and most traders were sitting on the sidelines waiting for clarity. But my algorithm was detecting patterns in the chaos, subtle correlations between news sentiment, whale wallet movements, and technical indicators that human traders were missing. I decided to risk everything on one trade. Bitcoin was hovering around $31,000, and my algorithm was showing a 94% confidence prediction of a major upward movement within the next 18 hours. Every indicator was aligned perfectly. Social sentiment was shifting, institutional buying patterns were emerging, and the technical setup was textbook. With shaking hands, I transferred my last $2,400 into the trade, using 10 times leverage to maximize my position. If I was wrong, I'd lose everything and have to call my father to ask for money to eat. If I was right, I couldn't sleep that night. I sat watching the charts, drinking coffee, and rechecking my calculations over and over. At 6:15 a.m., news broke that a major investment bank was announcing a billion-dollar Bitcoin treasury strategy. The markets exploded upward. In 4 hours, Bitcoin rose from $31,000 to $38,500. My leveraged position turned $2,400 into $34,800. More money than I'd ever seen in my life. But I wasn't done. My algorithm was still showing bullish signals, predicting the momentum would continue for another 48 hours. I held my position. By Sunday evening, Bitcoin had reached $42,100. My $2,400 had become $87,600. In one weekend, I'd made more money than my father earned in 2 years of construction work. But the real validation came the following week. I received a message through LinkedIn from someone named David Park, a quantitative analyst at a cryptocurrency hedge fund in San Francisco. Cameron, the message read, I've been tracking unusual trading patterns in the Bitcoin market over the past month, and they all seem to originate from your algorithm. I'd like to discuss a potential partnership. Are you available for a call? It turned out that David's fund had been trying to reverse engineer my trading strategy because it was consistently outperforming their own models. They'd noticed that someone with a relatively small account was making moves that predicted major market shifts with uncanny accuracy. During our video call, David's first question was, How old are you? When I told him I was 22, he laughed and said, You just outperformed a team of MIT graduates with $50 million in capital. What we want to know is, are you interested in scaling this up? The offer was simple. They'd provide $500,000 in trading capital, and I'd run my algorithm on their platform in exchange for 60% of the profits. No salary, no guarantees, just pure performance-based partnership. I said yes immediately. Within 6 weeks of partnering with David's fund, my algorithm had generated over $1.2 million in profits. My personal share was $480,000, more money than my entire family had ever saved combined. But the success was still hidden from everyone who mattered to me. Only Tyler and Dr. Chen knew what was happening, and I'd sworn them to secrecy. The temptation to reveal my success was overwhelming. Every time Jackson texted me about job opportunities or my mother called asking when I was coming home, I wanted to screenshot my account balance and end their concerns forever. But something held me back. Maybe it was fear that they still wouldn't believe it, or maybe I knew that simply showing them money wouldn't address the deeper rift between us. Instead, I decided to make a statement they couldn't ignore or dismiss. If they valued material success and physical proof of achievement, I'd give them something impossible to deny. I drove to the Ferrari dealership in Littleton on a Tuesday afternoon, wearing the same jeans and hoodie I'd worn for 3 days straight. The salesman took one look at me and clearly assumed I was wasting his time. He showed me around half-heartedly, constantly checking his phone and making comments about financing options for young professionals. I'm interested in the F8, I told him, pointing to the red Spider convertible in the center of the showroom. That's a beautiful car, he said condescendingly. The lease payments start around $2,400 per month, depending on your credit situation and down payment. I'd like to buy it outright, I said quietly. His expression changed completely. 2 hours later, I drove out of the dealership in a $280,000 Ferrari F8 Spider, the engine note turning heads on every block. The car was stunning. Rosso Corsa red with cream leather interior, carbon fiber accents everywhere, and a V8 engine that sounded like controlled violence. But as I drove home, I realized the car wasn't bringing me the satisfaction I'd expected. It was beautiful, it was fast, and it was proof of my success. But it felt hollow. I was still the same person, still hurt by my family's dismissal, still isolated from the people I wanted to share this victory with. That night, I parked the Ferrari in my apartment complex's lot and sat in my studio staring at it through the window. My neighbors were already gathering around it, taking pictures and speculating about who could afford such a car. But all I could think about was how empty the achievement felt when I had no one to share it with. Tyler came over the next evening and found me sitting on my floor, looking miserable despite having over $400,000 in my trading account and nearly $200,000 remaining after the car purchase. You did it, man, he said. You proved them all wrong. So why do you look like someone just died? Because proving them wrong isn't enough, I admitted. I thought it would be, but it's not. The revelation came during a phone call with my mother 2 weeks after buying the Ferrari. She sounded different, tired in a way that went beyond her usual work exhaustion. Mijo, I need to tell you something, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Your father, he's been struggling with the business. The pandemic hurt construction worse than he wanted to admit. And now with inflation, material costs, we're behind on the house payments. The words hit me like a physical blow. While I'd been accumulating wealth and buying luxury cars, my parents were facing financial ruin. Why didn't anyone tell me? I asked. Your father forbid it, He said we weren't going to burden you with our problems when you were already struggling. And Jackson has been helping when he can, but he has his own family to support. The irony was crushing. My family had been protecting me from their financial crisis while simultaneously criticizing me for not having a real job. They thought I was broke and struggling, so they carried their burden alone rather than ask for help from someone they believed couldn't provide it. "How bad is it, Mom?" She was quiet for a long moment. "We might lose the house. Your father's pride won't let him ask for help, but we've missed 3 payments. The bank sent a notice last week." That night, I couldn't sleep. I drove around Aurora in the Ferrari, seeing my childhood neighborhood with new eyes. The house where I'd grown up, where my parents had built their life together, was about to be taken away while I sat on nearly $500,000 they didn't even know I had. I called Tyler at 2 a.m. "I need to understand something," I said. "Why would my family spend years telling me I'm worthless while simultaneously protecting me from their problems?" "Because they love you," he said simply. "They were trying to push you toward what they thought was safety, a steady job, predictable income, financial security. They couldn't see that your path might lead to the same place." The next morning, I drove to Jackson's house in Thornton. I found him in his garage working on his truck's engine, grease up to his elbows. When he saw the Ferrari pull into his driveway, his expression went through a series of changes: confusion, recognition, then anger. "Whose car did you steal?" was his first question. "It's mine, Jackson. I bought it." He laughed bitterly. "Right. And I'm the Pope. Cameron, this has gone too far. Whatever scheme you're running, whatever lie you're living, it needs to stop before you get arrested." That's when I realized the real problem. It wasn't that my family didn't believe in cryptocurrency or algorithms or new technology. It was that they couldn't believe their youngest son, the one they'd watched struggle through high school math, the one they'd seen fail at simple tasks, the one they'd protected and worried about for 22 years, could accomplish something they couldn't understand. Their disbelief wasn't just about my work. It was about me, standing in Jackson's garage, watching him refuse to even consider that the Ferrari might be real. I experienced a fundamental shift in how I saw our entire conflict. For years, I'd focused on proving that my approach to success was valid, while simultaneously trying to prove that theirs was wrong. But that was never going to work, because success wasn't the real issue. The real issue was fear. Their fear that I was throwing my life away, and my fear that I'd never be good enough to earn their respect. We'd been fighting about methodology when we should have been talking about values. "Jackson," I said quietly, "what if I told you that everything you taught me about work ethic and persistence and never giving up is exactly what made this possible?" He looked up from his engine, grease-stained hands frozen on his wrench. "The algorithm didn't build itself," I continued. "I spent 3 years working 18-hour days, 7 days a week, learning skills I didn't have, solving problems no one had solved before. I failed hundreds of times before I succeeded once. That's not different from construction work. That's exactly like construction work, just using different tools." For the first time in years, my brother was really listening to me. "You and Dad taught me that anything worth building requires sacrifice, dedication, and the willingness to bet everything on your ability to deliver. The only difference is that instead of building houses, I built something that builds wealth." I pulled out my phone and showed him my trading account balance. His eyes widened, but I kept talking before he could interrupt. "But here's what I learned that you already knew. Success isn't just about the money you make. It's about what you do with that money, who you help with it, and whether you remember where you came from." Jackson sat down heavily on his toolbox. "Mom told you about the house. She told me about Dad's pride, too, about how he'd rather lose everything than ask for help. That's something else you both taught me. Sometimes the hardest work isn't building something up. It's knowing when and how to tear down the walls that are keeping you trapped." We talked for 2 hours in that garage. Really talked, maybe for the first time since we were kids. I learned that Jackson's hostility hadn't just been about my career choices. He'd been carrying the weight of being the successful son, the one everyone expected to have all the answers. the one who was supposed to take care of everyone when things went wrong. "I've been so angry at you," he admitted finally. "Not because I thought you'd fail, but because I was terrified you'd succeed and show everyone that there was a better way than the path I chose." That night, I didn't go home to my apartment. I spent hours driving around Denver, thinking about success and family and what it means to build something that lasts. By morning, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Instead of just solving my family's immediate financial crisis, I decided to create something that could transform how they thought about money, work, and success. I spent 2 weeks developing a plan that would address not just their current problems, but their long-term security and dignity. First, I quietly paid off my parents' mortgage through a local law firm, structuring it as an anonymous gift so my father's pride wouldn't be injured. The family would find out eventually, but not until I'd addressed the bigger picture. Next, I approached my father's business with a proposal. I'd observed that construction companies were being disrupted by technology, project management software, drone surveying, automated scheduling, and digital payment systems. But most contractors couldn't afford the upfront costs or didn't know how to implement these tools effectively. I created Valdez Construction Technologies, a company that would provide technology solutions specifically for small construction firms. My father's company would be the pilot program, getting access to cutting-edge tools for free in exchange for feedback and case study data. If the pilot succeeded, we'd scale the solution to other family-owned construction businesses across Colorado. But the real innovation was the financial component. Instead of just providing technology, VCT would offer what I called profit-sharing modernization. We'd implement efficiency improvements that typically increased project margins by 15 to 25%, and the construction companies would keep 100% of the first year's increased profits. After that, we'd split the ongoing gains 50-50. It was a model that honored traditional construction values while embracing technological advancement. Contractors maintained complete control of their businesses while accessing tools that previously only large corporations could afford. For Jackson, I had a different proposal. His leadership skills and deep industry knowledge made him perfect to head the expansion program. I offered him a partnership in VCT with equity ownership and the responsibility for identifying and onboarding new contractor partners. "You'd be building something bigger than any single construction project," I told him during our second garage conversation. "You'd be helping preserve family businesses like Dad's across the entire region." The third component was personal education. I started teaching my family about cryptocurrency and algorithmic trading, not to turn them into traders, but to help them understand how wealth could work for them instead of against them. My mother was particularly fascinated by the concept of automated investing. She could see how technology could help families like ours build generational wealth without requiring advanced education or insider connections. Tyler joined the company as head of development, finally putting his engineering degree to work on something that mattered to both of us. Dr. Chen agreed to serve as an advisor, helping us develop educational materials that could teach financial literacy to blue-collar families. 6 months after buying the Ferrari, I had something much more valuable. A business that generated passive income for my family while preserving their dignity and expanding their opportunities. The family reunion where I arrived in the Ferrari feels like a lifetime ago, even though it happened just 8 months past. This year's gathering was different in every possible way. I arrived in my basic Honda Civic. I'd sold the Ferrari after 3 months and put the money into expanding VCT. The car had served its purpose as a statement, but I realized that the statement I really wanted to make couldn't be bought. It had to be built. My father was standing by the grill, but this time he was wearing a polo shirt with the Valdez Construction Technologies logo, talking animatedly with my uncle about the new project management system that had increased his crew's efficiency by 30%. When he saw me, he didn't just nod. He smiled and waved me over. "Cameron, come tell Fernando about that scheduling algorithm you built for the equipment rotation. He's thinking about implementing it with his plumbing business." For the first time in my life, my father was asking me to explain my work to someone else, and he was proud of what I'd created. Jackson was there with his kids, but he looked different, more relaxed, more confident. VCT had grown to serve 43 construction companies across Colorado and was expanding into Wyoming. As head of contractor relations, he'd found his calling in helping other family businesses modernize without losing their identity. "Uncle Cameron," my nephew called out, running toward me with a tablet in his hands. "Look what I built." He'd created a simple scheduling app for his Little League team using the programming tutorials I'd been teaching him. My mother pulled me aside during dinner. "Mijo, I have something to show you." She handed me a portfolio statement. She'd been using the automated investing system I'd set up for her, and her retirement account had grown by 40% in 6 months. "Your father finally understands," she said softly. "Not just what you built, but why you built it. He sees now that you weren't running away from our values. You were finding a new way to live them." As the evening wound down, my father and I found ourselves alone on the back porch, watching the Denver skyline light up in the distance. "I owe you an apology," he said suddenly. "I spent so many years trying to protect you from failure that I almost prevented you from succeeding." "You didn't do anything wrong, Dad. You taught me everything I needed to know. I just applied it differently than you expected." He was quiet for a long moment. "Jackson told me something interesting last week. He said that watching you build your business taught him more about leadership than 15 years in construction. He said you showed him that real success isn't about being right. It's about making everyone around you more successful." Looking back now, I realized that the Ferrari was never about the car itself. It was about transformation, not just proving that I could succeed, but creating a new definition of success that had room for everyone I cared about. My cryptocurrency algorithm still runs 24/7, generating steady returns that have grown my initial success into a 7-figure portfolio. The algorithm that started with $2,400 has now generated over $1.8 million in total profits, funding VCT's expansion and my family's long-term security. But the real measure of success isn't in my trading account. It's in the 43 families whose businesses are thriving, the hundreds of construction workers who now have better benefits and job security, and the knowledge that my parents will never again face financial crisis alone. I learned that winning isn't about proving your family wrong. It's about building something so valuable that it transforms their understanding of what's possible. Success isn't individual, it's collective. And the most powerful technology isn't code or algorithms. It's the ability to bridge different worlds and create opportunities for everyone to thrive. The boy who was told he'd never amount to anything but disappointment became a man who discovered that the greatest fortune isn't the money you make. It's the lives you change along the way.